Hello, good morning. Can everybody hear me? Am I loud and clear? I hope so. Good. Excellent. Okay, great. We're still waiting for a few people to arrive, but we're just about ready to begin, I think. This is one of the back-to-school sessions for the MENA region, looking at grammar and Academy stars. I'm aware that a few people in the room might not be Academy stars users, and that's absolutely fine. The principles, I'm sure, will cross over to whatever course book you might be using. Okay, we've got a lot to get through, so I'm going to race through at a brisk pace, keeping you with me, hopefully, throughout. Hopefully you enjoy. We're going to look at some kind of practical ways of looking at the materials and how we approach grammar with our primary students. And we'll have some interactive activities as well. I'm sure if you've been to one of my sessions before, you know that I like to make them nice and interactive, get the brain cells ticking a little bit. So, good morning, Kurdistan. Great to see you. You are a good proportion of today's attendees from my scanning of the registration form. There's a lot of people coming from Kurdistan, which is amazing to see. We're always happy to have you guys. And I think there's a few people from Morocco as well, maybe the odd person from Jordan or Saudi maybe joining us as well. People joining slowly. Okay, I think a lot of you probably already have met me before. If you haven't, my name is Nathan Waller, and I am the teacher trainer for the MENA region for Macmillan Education. I won't tell you much more about myself today, but I want you to look at this word. Everybody knows the English. I should have put a visual there, but I'm sure you can visualize a caterpillar. Everybody know what a caterpillar is? I'm sure you do, little tiny bug. So you'll notice that I've also put it in another language. I cannot hear you, obviously, but I want you to repeat after me. The Mandarin word for caterpillar is mamaochong. Mamaochong. If you can do that, congratulations. Now, nothing else you need to do. Just take a good look at this. Look at it for a couple of seconds, 30 seconds. Try to remember this word, mamaochong. We're going to come back to it later on. Don't screenshot it or write it down. Just try and put it in that memory. Mamaochong. Maybe you have to say it a few times to try and remember it. Everybody got it? Mamaochong? You can remember this for later? Good, excellent. Good morning. Okay, now it's a fairly early morning for some of you. I know there's people saying they are from Kurdistan, which is 1 hour behind me, so that's 10:30. If you're in Egypt, that means it's 9:30. If you are one of the rare ones from Morocco, then you are 8:30 in the morning. So thank you very much for getting up nice and early this morning. Hope you got some coffee next to you, depending on where you are. Are you in school or are you at home? I am in the office, but it's 11:30 here, so it's not quite so early for me. Yeah, 10:30. Okay, it is early, so let's get those brains working straight away. We're going to do a quiz, 5 questions. Let's see who can get 5 out of 5. The topic of the quiz is going to be, of course, anybody guess? It's the topic of the day. It's going to be about grammar, of course. Question 1. Let's see how good your grammar is. And you're all grammar teachers. You should get 10 out of 10 for this, 5 out of 5 for this. Following group of words, a phrase or a clause. Must have jumped. Phrase or clause. Nice easy one to start with. Yep, read it straight in there. You know which kind of phrase? Extra point if you can get what type of phrase it is. Yep, exactly. So nice, easy one to start. Question 1, it's a verb phrase. See, you guys are awake already. Question 2, which sentence is written in the passive voice? Another nice, easy one to wake us up. B, of course, yep. See, you guys are on the grammar already, look. Don't even need me, I don't think. Yep, so passive voice, the verb acting on the noun. Question 3, which sentence is correct? I should have called my grandma, I should have called my grandma. I put A's and B's and then 1s and 2s so we didn't get confused in the chat box. Yep, people going in with number 2. I think this is depending on where you actually are. Yeah, technically it's correct. I should have called my grandma. But if anybody has ever met a member of my family, they would probably hear I should have called my grandma. So there's definitely a big difference between correct grammar and usage of grammar, depending on where you are in the world. Go to any English household, and I'm pretty sure you won't hear I should have called my grandma, unless they're from upper class London, maybe. We're all doing well at the moment, 3 out of 3. Which sentence is punctuated properly? And an extra bonus point if you know why. A or B, students wanted indoor recess, the teachers wanted outdoor recess. Again, nice and easy this, I think. A or B? Oh, people might still be on the last one. We've got 2s coming in. B, we're going with B. I think people are putting 2 instead of B. The second one is correct. The students wanted indoor recess, the teachers wanted outdoor recess. 2, I think people are going for this one, if you can see the mouse. I think we've slipped up here. The correct answer is A for this one. You need a semicolon. We have 2 independent clauses. If you want to join 2 independent clauses together, you need to use a semicolon, which is this little fella here. This, if you use a comma in this sentence, this popular form of grammatical mistake is called a comma splice, if I'm not mistaken. If anybody is into the linguistics of grammar, which I am not particularly. These are 2 independent clauses, so it's got to be a semicolon. We can argue about that later if you want, don't worry. And the last question. Name the error in the following sentence. Spitting out hot lava, my friend took photos as the volcano erupted. This is the tough one, I think. Anyone want to hazard a guess? It is, Salen, a misplaced modifier. Comma splice we just saw in the last question, question 4. If you use a comma in that sentence, you're using a comma splice. It's supposed to be a semicolon. But this one is a misplaced modifier. The spitting out the hot lava is modifying, I think it's modifying volcano and not friend or something. Yep, there you go. Look, the volcano spits out lava, not his friend. Perfect. Well done. So I think some people got 5 out of 5. Maybe a couple of people got 4 out of 5. I think you guys are pretty hot on your grammar, so that's great. Okay, so people in different places still experiencing the challenge of back to school. We're not going to talk too much about that today because that's not the purpose of this session, but I'm sure you guys still have lots of questions. What if we start face-to-face and are forced to go online in the second semester? It's a big one here in the UAE at the moment. Case numbers going up, people questioning whether or not schools should continue. Some people say yes. Some schools have done a couple of weeks and then cancelled classes. They're taking a couple of weeks off. So there's lots of uncertainty still going on. Just because some schools have gone back doesn't mean they will continue. So I'm sure everybody everywhere still has a ton of questions. Who, where, what, when, what is going to happen to us? Not much we can do. We just got to kind of go with the flow at the moment. That's fine. Let's see what we can achieve. Okay, a few sentences here, or a few phrases. Let's see if you agree or disagree. Kids usually know how to deal with computers. Agree or disagree? Disagree. Agree. Ooh, there's a mixture here. Agree to an extent. Yeah. Some people think that because they see very young children picking up iPads and seemingly instinctively knowing what to do, that they're somehow computer literate. And I'm not quite sure that's true. I think if you're a psychologist, you're probably looking at it from the perspective of, well, I mean, it's about familiarity. So if you have something in your environment a lot, you become more familiar with it. You have I guess, an appreciation of how to use it a little bit more. Children are amazing visual learners. They will watch everything. Babies through to toddlers are continuously watching and listening and figuring out what to do. Second one, good books provide you with a wide number of digital resources. Yep, good ones should give you lots of teaching tools, lots of options, so you can have lots of variety in your classes. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have digital resources. If you go back 20 years, 30 years, people still learn the English language with no access to digital resources whatsoever. So it is clearly possible, but as a teacher, it's great to have a wide variety of digital tools. Especially these days, children are used to it, and they also see it as being very motivational. So it's good to have those options. The good thing is, if you are using Academy Stars, it has a lot of digital resources, and we will look at some of these. The third statement, if it can be taught face-to-face, it can be taught online. Yeah, I don't see why not. You'd be probably hard pushed to find something that if you can teach it face-to-face, you cannot do it online in some capacity or another. It is harder to teach and learn. It definitely changes the landscape. We will look at some of those things as well. Okay, so nice little warming introduction while we waited for a few more people. These are the things we're going to look at today. We're going to look at, our focus is on grammar. We're going to look at developing language skills in the physical and online classroom. We could look at many things within Academy Stars. We could look at critical thinking or writing or phonics or something, but focusing on grammar in this session. To do that, we're going to look at supporting the linguistic content with videos. Yes, we're teaching them from home. It's very challenging, but we have some materials that can help us, things that they can access independently. And we're going to look at using the textbook and animations in particular to facilitate students' understanding of grammatical structures. This is the kind of main focus of this session. And in this statement, I want to draw our attention to the word facilitate. We're going to come back to this a little bit later, because we really, when it comes to grammar, are facilitators. I know we like to feel like teachers, but really, when it comes to grammar, I think we need to think of ourselves as facilitating. And the last one, we're going to look at using natural real-life examples. So it's got meaning to the students themselves, getting them to use the language in a variety of meaningful ways with each other. Sometimes grammar can be a little bit grammar worksheet heavy. Here's the form and just complete activities. That might not be the best way of getting them to learn the grammar. So we'll look at some examples of that as well. Okay. Let me introduce you to Omar. Here he is. This is a real-life student, was a real-life student of mine. He's probably an adult now, which is kind of scary for me. I taught this pupil a long time ago, maybe 12 years ago. So he's probably in the world of work right now. I'm sure you can guess where he is from. He's got a very distinctive outfit. Anybody want to guess which country I was teaching in at the time? An easy one. Oman, of course it is. I was teaching in Oman for a little while at an international school, well, private international school. Omar, I think, was grade 5 at the time. And he's wearing the famous Omani Kumar. And I think actually you can tell from the neckline of the dish dash as well. So this is Omar, a very typical student. He was well-behaved, enthusiastic. I'm trying to think what else. He was a good student. But if I was to ask Omar, would you rather, we're looking at approaching grammar from the student's perspective. So if I said to him, would you rather learn grammar or chat with your classmates, which one's he going to choose? Pretty easy. He's going to choose, chatting with his classmates, right? He's not going to choose to learn grammar, I'm sure. He wants to chat. He wants to converse with his friends. That's pretty natural, I think. If I was to ask him, would you rather hear about grammar rules or play a game? He's going to want to play a game. Yeah, he doesn't want to hear about grammar rules. That's boring learning stuff. I want to get involved. I want to do something. I want to be active. I want to interact with my friends, and I want to play games. If I ask him if he wants to memorize verbs or watch a video, obviously he's going to want to memorize verbs, because who doesn't want to memorize verbs? He wants to watch a video. Exactly. So we get into the mindset of our students. We know that learning grammar, it's abstract, especially for primary school students. It's difficult for them. It's not easy to grasp. They would rather be doing something more interactive, more collaborative, and more fun. Students to the right, teachers to the left. So there's a conflict between what we want to achieve and what they want to do. And we need to somehow bring those two things together and see if we can blend them and find a common ground so that we can use motivational ways of moving them forward with their learning, but also achieve our objectives as well, getting them to use the language in a fun way. Again, if we're thinking about the way children learn, children want to, well, it says here, children want to kind of enjoy themselves. In what other ways do children want to learn? What do children want to do when they're at school? Anybody have anything else? I've got that they want to play games. I've got that they want to chat with their classmates. What other things do children, primary school children, want to do while they're at school? That's a question for you guys. Any other things other than games, chit chat, and whatever the last one was? Watching videos? They want to learn. Okay, yeah. They're thirsty for knowledge. I would agree. Anything else? What do they want to do? Yeah, sports. So again, very, a lot of movement. They want to move around. They want to have fun. They want to draw. Yeah, they want to do lots of different things. So we need to take what they want to do, what they're interested in, and our objectives, and ball them up. Now, Academy Stars aims to do that. It aims to bring all of those things together. They want to have fun. They want to read. They want to draw. They want to learn. They want to act things out. They want to interact with each other. It tries to bring all of those things into one methodology. We are, of course, looking at the grammar. Now, if we go back to the question before, do good course books have lots of digital resources? People saying yes, they do. This is the kinds of digital resources that Academy Stars has. So if you go into the Academy Stars Macmillan Education Everywhere website and you are putting in your code, you will get up all of these resources. So you have a presentation kit for the pupils book and for the workbook. So you could do synchronous activities straight from the book. They could have it in front of them and they can see what you're doing. You have all the embedded videos and content there that you would need. Pupils also have their own practice kit, so they can do asynchronous learning as well, extension activities, or you could use it in a flipped way and get them to do some of the practice activities, and then focus on usage in class time. You have test generators, so you can do unit tests or module tests or end of course tests, and they're flexible. Trying to remember to keep assessment for learning as much as possible. Use a variety of testing tools to keep that movement going forward, to keep recycling and generating content as you go. And then you have this kind of big list of things within the Teacher's Resource Center. In fact, if I switch screens, which I can do, if I go to yeah, hopefully you can see this. This is my bookshelf in Macmillan Education Everywhere.com. I've signed in as a teacher. I've activated the code, and I can see I can see Academy Stars. I'll log in again. It's logged me out. So I can go into Academy Stars. And again, this is what we just saw on the slide. I've got a presentation kit. We can have a look at that in a bit if you want. But you have Teachers Resource Center here as well. And you can find all sorts of things in here. Start of year resources, tests, placement. You could do a placement test. If you're worried about bridging the gap between last year and this year, find out what gaps they've got so you can focus on reinforcing some of that stuff while you're doing new content. You've got all the audio, you've got additional worksheets, visual packs, things to go with the reading. And you've also got, if you want to do a bit more about the methodology, you can see that here as well. And there's also a graphic grammar reference for this level. I think this is level 2 that I've got here. So if we were to click on that, you can actually read all about the methodology of the graphic grammar inside of the Teacher's Resource Center. We can also see the presentation kit if you wish. Need to see view of the browser. Yeah, it's Academy Stars 2 that I have. So digital pupils, presentation kit, this one. Yep, and we can see all of the units here. In fact, we'll come back to one of them in a minute. Oops. Okay, we'll come back and have a look at one of them videos in a minute when we go through. So there's a lot of things in here. Yeah, Roseanne, there's a ton of stuff in here to help you move classes online if you really need to. A lot more than some of the other course books that we have. Academy Stars is one of the newer ones. So there's a lot of interactive stuff going on there. Okay, so let's have a look. Let's look at one particular example. We'll go through an approach to presenting grammar to our students in class. So we're going to look at grammar and we're going to look at to be with I, he, and she. So we're looking at very kind of low level, I think grade 1. So if you are teaching Academy Stars level 1 or level 2, the grammar is presented towards the front of the unit in lesson 2 and lesson 3. Lesson 1 is your typical opener, your vocabulary with a contextual song. So the vocab for the unit has already been presented. And then you have this grammar time and a grammar focus. You've got 2 grammar lessons. So lots of grammar support, nice and early on in the unit to get them thinking about it and get them using it straight away. So in order to attempt these 2 pages, the students will need some kind of prior knowledge. If this is Academy Stars 1, they could have done the starter book, because I think Academy Stars is a 7-level course. Or they may have approached some of this stuff if they've done something like Learning Stars in pre-primary. So if they've done pre-primary, hopefully they will have done the alphabet. They will have looked at basic colors, numbers, and some simple vocabulary, things like boy, girl, friend, small, and tall. These things they need in order to be able to approach this particular part of the unit. So we need to, when they're planning, right, well, okay, they're going to do some grammar, but what do they need already to be able to approach that grammar? And these are some of the things. This is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you can add other things to it as well. So let's look at the first part. So grammar is introduced through a storyboard. This is in unit in levels 1 or 2. And the aim is to get them to listen and read. Now, you want to focus on listening first. We want them to be able to identify the sounds of the grammar before we attempt to get them to read and write. Remember to work backwards. You cannot write something until you can read it. You cannot read something until you can speak it. And you cannot say something unless you've heard it, as we will find out from our remembered word earlier. So we want to listen to the story and we're going to point to the pictures. Now here, to start straight away, we want the students to focus on the visuals, the images. We want them to follow by listening what they can see. So they will be hearing, it's hard to see, look, Anna, he's tall. Yeah, and we want them to see that this particular character is tall. And we want them to use that themselves if we can. So if we're in class, we can do things like, making students stand up if we're doing a circle time type, or getting them to sit in a group, getting ones to stand up and identifying he's tall. I'm tall, I'm short, he's tall, he's short, this kind of thing. So we're identifying, so we're listening first and pointing to the pictures. So we're just following through so that they can follow through the simple listening in the storyboard. Okay, if you're doing this in an online environment, you do have the advantage of a highlighter if you're doing this with the Presentation Plus that we were showing. So use the highlighter to draw attention to the verb form. So again, we listen now a second time, and now we're drawing their attention to the words themselves. So they've got the visual and the words together. So we're scaffolding this particular activity. And here we can just color them in he's, color in he's, and he's. So they're just listening on this particular listening for he's. Can they identify where are the he's? And then you could do it again for the I'm, and you could do it again for the she's as well. Making it nice and explicit. Yep, this is doing it a third time with she's. Yep. So scaffolding that approach, getting them to see. But at the moment, we're presenting still. It's about them absorbing the language. And the final time, looking at I'm. So we've got the differentiation between the 3 different types that we're focusing on. Okay, now we can go back to look at the double page spread, and we can set them an activity. So we've modeled looking for a particular visual that we're looking for, like he's. So now we open that up and we say, how many he's can you find on these 2 pages? It's a bit small, but actually, you know what? I'll do that for you guys. How many can you find? Who's the first person that can count them all? I will do it as well. Who's going to be the first person? You're faster than me, probably. Sorry if it's a bit small. How many he's on 2 pages? 8, 10. No, you're all incorrect so far. Yeah, the font is very small. It's difficult to see. There are, in fact, 11, apparently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, there's 11. Oh, I could have zoomed in, I'm sorry. Don't worry too much. Anyway, there's 11. And it's a nice activity to bring the students away from just looking at the storyboard to being able to visualize or expose them to the target grammar in a wider way. Creating visual associations is what we want to do. Not just see that that language exists within that storyboard, but that we can find it in a variety of places. It's a nice little activity, just get them to scan. It's a bit like scanning, really. Okay, so we've been presenting the language. We've presented it in a meaningful context to start with, and then we've got them to kind of look around to see where they can associate that language. We want to break it down for them. The problem with grammar for primary aged or pre-primary and primary aged is that it's very abstract. It's not difficult. It's not easy for them to learn it. So the one thing we have done with Academy Stars is we've presented the language in terms of bricks. Think of it like a Lego. So you build the words together by using bricks. And we've done that in what we call graphic grammar. So it's not just presented on the page. You can probably find other examples where it's done in a kind of visual like this. The grammar is presented this way. But the difference with Academy Stars is that we have added for every grammar point a video to go with it. So there's a graphic grammar video. And if we go back to, in fact, let's see, because I think it's on the next slide. Yeah. So if I was to say to a student, this is what you're going to learn, and I give them a visual description. In fact, even if I gave that visual description or someone gave that to me, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't really make much sense. Knowing the theory of the grammar to form a question with a compound tense, the auxiliary verb must be placed before the subject. If someone told me to do that, I'd probably have to take a few seconds and, okay, let me think, what are you actually asking me to do? But for young children, we need to put it in a very visual way. And we're doing it in a way where we give them patterns. So we see that it's done like blocks. And one thing you could do if you were doing this with them in an online way would be to work with the parents, to communicate with the parents at home and see if they can get a small bag of, not the Lego bricks, but like the big ones, the Duplo ones, and some sticky labels, and they could actually make this out themselves. And they could move the kind of blocks so they can see very visually, and they can use their hands that way. So they could put these 4 things onto 4 Duplo blocks, and then they could move, and the parent could help them. So if I switch these around, it turns it into a question, this type of thing. Nice and easy for them to understand. Nicely modeled, nicely scaffolded. If we try to describe a grammar to them, we're probably going to get a lot of blank looks, I would have thought. I'm sure you've got lots of experience of trying to explain grammar concepts to young children and them not really getting it. So here it is. So we're going to look at the video. It's laid out for them in the book this way so they can see it. What they need is they need to really engage with that. So there's an actual contextual video for every grammar point, and it shows them very visually how we actually changed the language. I'm going to go back to screen share. We'll go back to the online presentation kit and look at that. Let's go back. Here we go. Hopefully you've come back to here. Which one should we look at? Let's look at my busy week. Read it in Spanish. Okay, so we've got the grammar here. We've got grammar time, as we've seen. They've got the storyboard, getting them to think about the language. And then they've got their grammar focus. So we've got this kind of graphic grammar. It's laid out for them nice with colors. And I'll show you the color scheme in a minute. But what we have is we have an embedded video to go with it. You're probably going to get
Wednesday.
Is that better? Okay, good. I muted it because I thought you would get an echo. Yes, I think you can download these videos as well. You can download them all individually and use them separately.
I do not play basketball on Tuesday.
Yep, and then you get this little stick character who makes the
basketball
contractions, bounces
on
around.
Tuesday.
But it's a really visual way for students
I
to see the grammar.
basketball on Wednesday.
Yeah, it is amazing. I think this is really nice. Takes a lot of the emphasis
I
off the
don't
teacher.
play basketball
Right, let me
on Tuesday.
pause this because we don't need to see it all. And we'll go back to the presentation. So it's a really nice, like, it takes a lot of the emphasis off the teacher having to do a lot of the work. Students can access this themselves. They can see this in their own students kit. So they can revise this. They can go over it as many times as they need to kind of grasp the concepts. The aim being that we get to the end of the unit, the end of the grammar focus, and we get them to use that. The aim is to utilize our time in class to get them to use the grammar. If we're spending all of our time trying to teach the grammar, especially in a kind of controlled environment like a classroom where you've got lots of students with a mixture of abilities and a mixture of motivations, is that you're always working against yourself. So try and get them to do a lot of this stuff ahead of time if you can. Again, that's a lot of interaction with parents needed, a lot of good communication with them. But the more they can do ahead of time, the more work you can do on language usage in class. If you are using a PPP type of methodology, our aim is to do as much production as possible. So if they can look at the presented material and do practice stuff by themselves, you have a lot of time to do production. Drifting off topic a little bit, but I think it's important. And again, let's go back to our friend Omar from Oman. What did he want to do? He wanted to watch videos. So we have matched up our objectives to his personal preferences. So we get a big tick, I think, on that one. Yeah, I think they do get it in an easy way. This was the video, but we're looking at a PDF, so we've just done that. So yeah, we've made it nice and fun. It's engaging. They've got the cartoony parts to actually see the language actually acted out, and then they've got it kind of visualized with the bricks and the pushing together, the little stick man. You can ask them where he's going. You could pause the video and say, what do you think the stick man is going to do? And after they've done quite a few videos, they should get used to the fact that he actually contracts things. That's his job. You can look at other things. There's a train as well. So if we're doing A and an, they can see that the an has a little train who pulls the vowels along, this kind of thing. I think we see an example of that in a minute, actually. But the idea is they start to recognize sentence parts. Yeah, they see sentences as being blocks of language which come together. The aim is that we cannot teach them everything, but we want to give them strategies so that they can figure things out themselves. Yeah, they start seeing it as logical, intuitive, and a way of putting words together. But they still need a lot of exposure to the spoken language first. So do a lot of prep works, get them to speak a lot, do a lot of interactional activities, make that into a game as well, stand up and say, I'm something, or stand up and say, he is something. Yeah, get them to interact with each other. You can do a lot of kind of fun games and group work. But the easier they have it in their heads about being able to say what it is they want to say, then they can start to associate that with the written form. If they haven't really got it in spoken form, they're probably going to struggle with the written grammatical form as well. Okay, so we've had a lot of presentation in a variety of ways, which is nice and colorful, fun, and interactive for them. They've had their video, which is nice. They've seen multiple examples in meaningful context. So now the storyboard continues. So it's an extension of what they've already done. but the idea is that you want them to be able to produce, or them to be able to practice that language. So they, after seeing all of those different types of language input, hopefully they should be able to interact with this. And you could, again, do this in a game form if you really wanted to. They've already practiced distinguishing between various subjects. So they've done I'm, he's, and she's. At this point, hopefully they've got it. If they don't, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's going to take them a little while. We need to, again, recycle and refresh and keep coming back to it. But our aim is to get to the end of the grammar focus, which is to get them to do something themselves. So they can now see that they can use those bricks to build their own sentences. And the aim is to do something. This could be a piece of artwork, and for them to present it to their friends. This is all about them presenting and speaking. We're getting them to actually say the language in a meaningful way based on something that they've produced. Difference between doing this particular type of activity online or face-to-face. We already discussed you could use Realia. If they are doing it at home, ask the parents to help them. They could do it with Duplo blocks. You could get them to do it something else. They could do it on one of those kind of scrub off whiteboards if you really wanted to. They could draw little squares. They could do it on cut out pieces of paper, however they wish. There's lots of variety if you get a little creative. Try to use Realia as much as possible. But as I was saying, our aim is to not just teach them a grammar concept for this unit. Let's say it is he is a doctor, and getting them to put that into a question format. Is he a doctor? By flipping that around. Our aim is to teach them, is to use this methodology to teach them strategies that they can then use by themselves independently in future units. So that the more they do, the easier it becomes for them. They might in a later unit come up to can he, and they're like, oh yeah, I know that if I switch it around, I will form a question. And again, you can bring that up in class and assess them on that appropriately. Who can remember, in fact, I've just given you the answer, but who can remember our word for caterpillar? Anybody? I raced ahead a bit too fast. Yeah, we got our mamauchong. Did you remember, or did you just see that as I flashed it up? Be honest. You remembered, good. Okay, so the point I would like to make is that I just gave you one word and you managed to remember, which is great, congratulations. But what if I was to give you 6 words? Would you have remembered all 6? You think? Maybe you would have, I'm not sure. The second question is, if I'd given you these 6 words and I asked you what the word is for orange tomorrow, would you remember tomorrow? Would you remember next week? How many times do we need to see something before we learn it, not just memorize it? And there isn't really an answer for that. They say that you need to see a piece of vocabulary on an average 17 times before you remember it. So we need to remember that, especially with grammar, we need to keep going over it and over it and over it again. They're not necessarily going to get it on the first attempt. One of the things that I think becomes very frustrating for us as teachers is that we do a unit, it's got a grammar part in it, we get to the end of the unit, and we're like, they just don't get it. And we've done everything we can. I've showed it to them in a variety of ways. I've given them plenty of worksheets, and they seem to be able to do it on my worksheet. They manage to fill it in. They fill in the gaps. They draw the arrows between different parts, different components. And then when I test them at the end of the unit, they come up with blank, or they can't say it. I get them to stand up and say something in a free way, and they just don't seem to be able to produce that language. I don't understand why. And it's because they need to do it over and over again. This unit, let's say you were doing a unit 4 this week, you need to bring in elements of units 3, 2, and 1, and also sow the seeds for 5, 6, and 7. The unit is not isolated by itself. It's part of a bigger picture. That's how they see it. I know for us, it always doesn't feel like that. We want to do one unit at a time and hope that they remember it. But for them, they're learning through a process of assimilating that content with what they've done before. And also, hopefully, they're seeing elements of things they're going to do in the future. For those of you who came to the story session, this is one of the nice things about doing lots of stories with them, is that the story may not be about that particular part of language, but it might be introducing them to future grammatical language. Things like, there was an example, I think, in one of those units, quickly. It comes from, it's in the reading for that particular unit. We're not focusing on that as a particular area of language. That's going to be done maybe in grades 5 or 6, who knows? But we are, we're showing it to them, yeah? They're being exposed to language that they might be learning in the future. We don't have to do everything today. So bear that in mind. It takes them a long time and a lot of recycling. Go back over things. Bring old language back into new lessons. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left. Let's have another look. So we're going to do grammar A and an. And I think it's from a slightly higher level book. This would be the grammar time and grammar focus. Actually, I think this is from level 2. So again, I wonder if I can zoom in on this so that you can see it a bit easier. The question is, what prior knowledge do they need to attempt the grammar on these 2 pages? That's my question for you. If I can zoom, I will. Yep. Oops. Is that a bit better? So what prior knowledge? We did prior knowledge in the last one. They needed the alphabet, they needed colors. What things do they need for this? They need, knowledge of vowels and consonants, okay? Some adjectives. Actually, this is the tray that I was describing before. So an plus, and they can see that if it's, it's easier on the page because it's bigger, but they can see that it's associated with these particular letters and they build an association with that. The train drags it along. They need some nouns. Which nouns do they need? Which noun group? So in lesson 1, they've probably already done the vocabulary. What might have been on the vocabulary? What topic? I think it would probably be classroom items. Things like pencil case, pen, rubber, whatever else is on there. Singular and plural. So they need quite a lot of things to be able to engage with this particular content. So we need to make sure that they already have that. So I'll dwell on that too much. They need the alphabet. They need to know school objects. In terms of grammar, they need to have already done he, she, is. So they would have done that already. In this one, we're going to be looking at its and what's. This is our grammar focus. It's cut off the bottom, actually, of this picture. But if you look at the bottom of the page, it gives you the focus of that particular lesson for your objectives. So keep your focus on that. But yeah, we're looking at, so they've already done he, she, is with a contraction. So they'll have watched graphic grammar previously. We can use that to build on that. So we give them a challenge. And I need to zoom out again, sorry. Let's go back to, go back to 100%. So they should have already done this, so we can recycle this and refresh and make sure they can do it. He is tall, moves to he's tall, So activating that schemata. And the idea is to show them that we use the same strategy. So if we change he to it, what should the question mark be? It's a contraction, it's its. So again, you're modeling it for them, scaffolding it, nice and simple. It to its. So this is the challenge straight away. Can they just use the strategy that they've already previously learned? Our focus for grammar in this isn't that, it's actually a and an. So we're looking at a with consonants and an with vowels. And again, they have a nice video to watch, so they watch the graphic grammar video. Then we give them another challenge to see whether or not, again, they can use that strategy in a question format. So we're going to, what is this? How do we contract that? Can they do it? Hopefully by this point, they'll have some idea how to associate. Again, they have the video, so they can check their answer with the video. So moving between your interactions and the video, yeah, each one supporting each other. So this is an activity that you can do before you engage with the story itself. So we're going back. So what have they done before? Can I highlight that strategy again so that we can now use it in this particular lesson? And then we can go through and do some of the things that we did before. We can highlight it in the particular story. Yeah. But we've done an interacting activity to kind of set that up. I'm not going to read this, but we need to think about children's ability to focus. So this is always a big one for lower primary especially. How long can children sit and engage, especially with a grammar activity? Probably not for very long. We need to keep changing what it is that we're doing. Change between the video, us actually doing something with them doing something themselves. Get them to move. They want to move around. We already had that at the beginning in people's comments. Students want to move around. So if they're sitting, looking and listening to kind of grammar concepts, you probably aren't going to get a very long attention span. But if we get them interacting and we have flashcards, you could give them a flashcard that's secret, and then they can look at it and they have to act it out, whether it's an I'm or whether it's an he's, this kind of thing. They're going to get their engagement for far longer. Think about what's distracting them. Again, what time of day it is, where they are, if it's online or if it's in the class, and their level of interest in the activity itself. And on top of that, and I've kind of just mentioned it, but you can use TPR a lot for these types of activities. And again, there's a whole variety that you can do. You can clap your hands if it's true. It's a phone, they could clap their hands. If it's wrong, they could touch their nose. If it's correct, they could jump, depending on where they are, if they're in the classroom. If it's online, very simple stuff. It could just be thumbs down, thumbs up, this kind of thing. Yeah, but at least they're doing something. So they're concentrating and they have to actually do something. Patting your head is another one. Stomping your feet, yeah. In class, obviously a famous one. Stomp your feet and then use it as a way of calming them down. So TPR is a great one. So again, this has all just been presentation, a variety of ways to present, and then you can go through the graphic grammar videos again with them and highlight, make sure that their understanding is there. Yeah, and then you could use the additional things. If you go into the Teachers Resource Center, you will find things like sounds and letter cards like this, and you can use all sorts of things. You have to highlight the vowels and highlight the consonants. You could do one of each. Yeah, so you could do adol and an insect, and all of this comes out. Yeah, you can just use the highlighter or draw circles around them. There's lots of things that you can do with the online resources. Yeah, some examples here. Look, so it's an apple. Yeah, he's a frog. This kind of thing. Plenty of options to get them interacting, but our aim is to get to that controlled and then free practice at the end. What you want them to be able to say, "What's this?" and them to respond, "It's a fox." So you can put them into, if it's in class, you can put them into pairs nice and easily. If it's online, again, you could just unmute two different students and give them the tasks and monitor how they're doing and give them support. Yeah, you could snip the pic and add it to your presentation. That's no problem. I think the materials online have been set up that you can just pretty much just use them straight off the platform. You want to do as little work as possible in terms of taking things out, but you could. I mean, I snip things out all the time. I would just screen grab this girl here and move her somewhere else. That's fine. And again, another example, switch them around. Julia, what's this? It's an orange. Yep, so we've done a lot of scaffolding. We've done a lot of prep work. We've presented to them in a variety of hopefully fun and engaging and colorful ways. But our aim is to get to this end part where they actually have to use it. And the more they do, the better they get at that particular strategy. So we've got two things, usage and strategies. And we're still ticking our box with our good friend Omar. He's playing a game with his friends, and there's a lot of interactions. He's getting to talk to them a lot as well. Yes, there will probably be some first language coming in, but that's absolutely fine. As long as they are, when they're actually engaging with the activity, that's fine. Can we do the same for all the primary students, or is it different? No, I'd say it's the same, but there's a slight difference in terms of the unit structure. So if you're teaching levels 3, 4, or 5, so you're teaching the older half of primary, the grammar is not presented in lesson 2 like it is in the lower levels. It's actually presented after the reading. So the idea is for them to have a better grasp of the language and use it in a reading activity first. So they do a lot of kind of language comprehension, and then they look at grammar after that. In fact, I think the last part, we've only got 5 minutes left, but we will look at it quickly. So we've looked at this stuff. We don't need to go back over this, because this is actually for the older students. It's about using the language itself. So in the lower levels, we want them to grasp simple grammatical concepts in speaking, in dialogue, and get them to use that. In the older years, we want them to actually get them to use the language more fluently. So we'll kind of race through this. So in this, you have kind of language in use. And again, look, so this is all about kind of using grammar in spoken context. This is this or that, so differentiating. So in lesson 1, they get the vocabulary. They need to have done family members before, which they should have done. So in the older ones, the slight difference, in fact, this is a good point to make, is that one of the tools you have in the Academy Stars book is, if you're doing levels 3, 4, 5, or 6, is it recognizes that the best model for students is children their own age. So they learn best from each other. If you model to them all the time, that's fine, but they're more likely to engage with that content if it comes from someone who is just like them. So in the, I've only got level 2, so I'm not sure if it's in here. Let me see, close this. Bear with me a second, I'm seeing if there is an example of this video. There is, okay, good. So if I share my screen again very quickly, while we have a couple of minutes left. Yeah, so if you can see language in use, and then they can see students their own age.
Do you visit your grandma at the weekend?
Yes, I do. I visit my grandma on Saturday.
Do you play tennis?
No, I don't. I don't play tennis at the weekend.
Do you read books?
Yes, I do.
We'll close that down because we don't have a lot of time, but there is a nice modeled video. A lot of them are actually students interacting with each other. That particular example was with a teacher, but you could do the same types of thing. You could ask them those types of questions. And again, you could do that in an interactive way. They could interview each other. They could interview someone at home. There's lots of scope if you get a bit creative with it, I think. So yeah, a lot of modeling, a lot of echoing, and they can see the language in a more natural, meaningful way. And we just mentioned all of these. I think it's just circling them. Yep, so seeing children their own age perform is really important. Seeing it in a natural, relatable context is important as well. And again, we want them to use it. So we've given them the structure. This is the control practice. They can see it again in that kind of brick block format. Yeah, we've got who's this, and we've got whoever it is plus whatever it is they have or whatever it is they like, this kind of thing. And you want them to produce that. So this is showing them in a very structured, controlled way. The aim is to get one step beyond that and for them to do it. And they can do this online. They could use a photograph, or they could use something that they have that they like. and they can present that. So you could let them do it one at a time if you had a 15-minute synchronous part of the lesson. So if they've been engaging with all that content at home by themselves, this is the point where you can assess them in a meaningful way. Okay, you are going to, on Thursday, have 30 seconds to show us a picture and tell us who it is, who he is to you, and use that particular language point. Yeah. And again, another example. So when we come back to our good old friend Omar, he's had all of his things that he wants. He wants to chat with his classmates. He's had opportunity to do that using English. He's watched a video, he's played some games, he's done a lot of interactional materials. Grammar doesn't need to be boring all the time. There's lots of ways to make it fun and exciting, but we need to remember that they're not necessarily going to learn it just because we've taught it in that particular unit. It may need refreshing over long periods of time. Keep coming back to it, keep reminding them what it is. Anybody remember what our word for caterpillar is? Just before we finish? We don't need to do this. Yeah, good old Mao Zhong. And if we were going to be doing this with you guys, if I was just to do a complete lesson in Mandarin, I would be giving you that vocabulary. We would be looking at the very hungry caterpillar. Yeah, and what is he eating? We could look at all sorts of language in a fun and interactive way. I'm going to come right to the bottom because we can just skip some of this stuff. So to review, we've got no more time left. We did look at developing language skills in physical and online classrooms with a heavy focus on grammar. We looked at supporting linguistic content with videos. Videos are a really nice way to get students to interact. And because they have access to the videos themselves, even if you did it in class, they can still go back and rewatch that video if they're one of the students where it doesn't really make sense to them. They can keep watching it as many times as they need in order to understand not just the grammar point, but the grammar strategy. We looked at using animations with a little stick man, and he pushes things together. Again, a nice, fun, interactive way. And our aim is to get them to use the grammar in dialogue. They're primary, so we're focused mostly on speaking and conversation patterns. Okay, we whizzed through that. That's just one element. Graphic grammar is here. It's just one part of a kind of bigger picture of Academy Stars. Again, we could learn about many things, how to develop independent learners, values, and this kind of thing. Yep. But we focused just today on grammar. I hope that was helpful. We've come to the end of our hour. Good books provide you with a wide number of digital resources. I think we've got a thumbs up on that one. And if it can be taught face-to-face, it can probably be taught online. We just need to be a little bit creative, probably. That's it from me today. Thank you very much for your hour. I hope it wasn't all something that you already knew. I hope there was something in there that's a little bit enlightening. If not, that's fine. Again, we're also students, so we also need plenty of reinforcement and recycling. You are all very most welcome. It's always great to have you here. And I am back on Wednesday looking at teens. Again, some of that will probably be quite relevant for young learners as well. So if you want to come along, you are more than welcome. I'm always happy to see you all. Enjoy the day ahead. It's lunchtime for me. And I will see you all very soon. Take care and good luck in your classes. Thanks, everyone.